This is Mr. Broxah here, and I'm right about to teach you how to play some Lee Sin in the LEC training grounds. When it comes to Lee Sin, there's a bunch of different aspects you need to learn. One of them is ward hopping. I personally like to have my trinket ward just bound to the standard 4 button. But when it comes to my pink wards, I like to have them on my mouse button, which I have bound to number 7. When you play Lee Sin, generally you want to have every spell smart casted, including W, because if you don't, you put down a ward. If you have it on normal cast, it's going to take a pretty long time to actually make the combo. So when playing Lee Sin, make sure you smart cast your spells. If you don't have smart cast, it's really hard to actually do a proper, clean ward jump. One thing to note is that control wards are really important to play this champion. Have at least 1 or 2 control wards off your base. Having these 2 control wards helps you make plays both in the early game, mid game, but also at the later stages of the game. When you're playing Lee Sin, one thing that's really important to maximize is your passive. Your passive gives you attack speed, it gives you a lot of energy regen. So first I use my Q, I auto twice, I use Q again to maximize my passive. Now I have W, so I start W, I auto twice, W again, auto twice, I Q. You want to use the spell, you want to auto twice, and then you use the spell again in order to always have passive up. And often you want to start off with your W, so you get the shield and you start getting the lifesteal, as well as getting W up as early as possible again, because W is what makes sure you don't run low on health in the jungle. You want to use the spell, you auto attack twice, in order to have passive up as long as possible. When it comes to Lee Sin combos, there's quite a few to pick, but the most standard one is the Insec. So I Q onto the target, ward jump behind and kick the target back. It's relatively simple. You just land your Q onto the target, ward jump behind it and kick it back. Something I would advise is to go into practice tool like I'm doing right now, put down a dummy and just keep doing the Insec, keep practicing ward jumping behind the opponent, because once you're mid-air you have to react really fast. When the target is moving, obviously makes it a bit more tricky, but this is a good start. There's a few other aspects to take into consideration. Let's say that this person right here is an Ari who's about to throw a charm at me. So I land my Q, he throws a charm, and I ward jump to the side while the charm is in the air to avoid the skill shot and then still get onto him without being charmed once I land. So I land my Q, jump to the side to avoid the skill shot and then jump in again. There's a different type of combo you can do. This combo is sometimes a little more reliable than using the ward jump. Instead of using my ward jump, I can Q onto the target, click ult and then flash behind the target. And the reason you want to do the R flash instead of flashing behind the target first is that when you R flash like this, it's really hard for the target to do anything. But if I on the other hand Q onto the target, flash behind and then R, maybe I'm gonna flash and this guy all of a sudden instead of being here is right here behind me, meaning my kick will go in the completely wrong direction. So if I R flash, it's pretty tricky for the opponent to get flash off in time, whereas if I flash behind the target and then R, maybe you know he's gonna flash away in time and escape. There's a bunch of different combos you can do with your flash. Let's say this target is running away from me. If I flash E, there's a chance the target is going to be out of range once I actually land. If I, on the other hand, do my E flash, then there's no way the target is going to avoid the flash E and then flash to ensure that the E actually lands onto the target. What you can also do with Lee is that if you're about to gank a lane, but the opposing mid laner is hiding behind the creeps, you can throw your Q and smite the minion while the Q is in the air to then get onto the target. We can try this again. Throw the Q, smite the creep, get onto him and kick him back. How Lee Sin Q works is that the first Q will do the same amount of damage no matter what, whereas the second one, when you jump onto the target, actually has a sort of execute, and it deals damage depending on how much missing health the target has. So what you can do sometimes, instead of using your Q as an engage tool, is that you land your first Q and then jump onto the target, burning all your damage, whereafter then jumping onto the target again to use your second Q as a sort of execute. I land my Q, I W onto it, get in a basic attack, use E ult and jump onto the target to execute it. This is the combo you want to use to maximize your damage onto a target. Like let's say you want to jump onto the AD carry in a team fight, for example, and you want to make sure you kill him. You Q onto the target, W, E, just burn everything you have and then use your second Q as a sort of execute. In order to ensure that you actually land your Q, you walk into the guy, kick him back, and then Q him while he's in the air to ensure that you get that additional damage from the Q onto him. Whereas if you start off by running into the lane, maybe the target is going to move and you miss your Q, you can just wall jump onto him, kick him back, then Q to make sure that your Q lands and you get that additional Q damage onto him. Something else you can do sometimes in League rather than focusing on one target with your full combo is that you can use your Q on a support or a tank and then you wall jump further back to actually get onto the carries. Sometimes the carriers are going to be hidden behind some beefy members and you want to use those beefy members to limit the distance between you and the carry that you want to get onto and execute in the back. So we Q onto one target and W and then we get the carry. Ideally, what you want to do is that you actually get the carry back into your team, and often you're going to need more than just a W for that. We're going to Q onto the tank and then use our W and our flash to actually get onto the guy in the back. When playing Lee Sin, you can use the terrain as well to sometimes really surprise people. Let's say we're in a situation where my mid laner is sitting under his tower, the opposing mid laner is trying to either damage him, take plates, hitting our tower. I can come from the raptor wall jump quickly over the wall, and just flash kick him into our tower, with him having very little time to react. So another trick that's important to have in your toolkit as a Lee Sin player is to use your ultimate. So kick people into other people for them to take extra damage. Let's say I'm in a skirmish, I'm running away from my life and these two people are chasing me. I just kick the first one into the other and they will both take a lot of damage while I can use my kick and then jump away to ensure that I'm actually in safety. Something to keep in mind here is that the person in the back is gonna take damage depending on how much HP the first person you hit has. So let's say this guy has 3000 HP and I kick him into the 80 carry in the back. The 80 carry is gonna take 12% of the 3000 in extra damage on top of what my ultimate would already deal. Let's say you're in a team fight, carry is in the back and tanks in the front. So you jump onto one of the tanks, kick him into the carry, and the 80 carry, for example, is gonna take a ton of damage. And this can be a really important tool to have both in smaller skirmishes but also in team fights. There's something else you can do with Lee Sin, which is a combo that not a lot of people are aware of and that actually rarely is being seen in competitive games especially. When you Q onto the target, instead of using your Q to close the distance, you include your W as well. Because ward hopping actually is much faster than just clicking your Q. The speed you fly with your Q is slower than ward hopping. So I Q onto the target, use my ward hop to close the distance and kick flash back to make it way more smooth and a lot harder for the target to actually react.
We do what we must.
To compare it to a normal combo, if I Q onto the target, it's really telegraphed. It's really easy for the guy to react because he knows the Q is coming, he knows if he flashes he's gonna be fine. Whereas if I Q onto him, W in front and then Q again and kick him back, it's way harder for the target to actually react. So if we look at this specific clip, we're doing Baron, we're against Excel. I know that K-Drill is gonna come close soon to try to steal the Baron away from me. First of all, we damage the Baron, we get it low to make sure it's in Smite range. The Baron is low, I'm just waiting for my chance to kick K-Drill away. I Q onto the Baron, ward hop over, kick him away to make sure that he can't steal it away from me, and then jump back in to actually secure the Baron for my team. I Q the Baron, ward jump over the pit to kick the enemy jungler away, and then take my Q back into the Baron, smiting and securing the Baron with no chance of actually losing it. So now I'm gonna talk about probably my most famous Lee Sin play ever from Worlds against IG. I'm Lee Sin fighting Gragas and Leona, and this clip isn't super fancy in that sense, but it's more about the creativity of the play itself that makes it pretty impressive. I start fighting Gragas, a Leona appears out of nowhere. I'm caught between two people with the enemy AD carry walking towards me, wanting to kill me. Instead of giving up on life, I flash onto the Gragas, use my kick to kick him further away from Leona. land my Q onto him, Q away, so Hylisang is there to shield me afterwards and get me out of there. Jackalope even flashes in, wanting to get the last hit onto me, but I'm Lee Sin. I'm way too slippery for him to actually get onto me. And yeah, this was a really nice play that shows that you can use your ultimate as an escape tool as well. Just kicking a guy away, queuing onto him and getting out of there, but also using your ult to then make it easier for yourself to land your Q afterwards. This was Broxah here in the LEC training grounds. I hope you all learned something about Lee Sin, and I hope you can use these small tips and tricks in your upcoming solo queue games. Of course, make sure to thank Mr. Broxah before going in there to increase your mechanics in the champion.